You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia. Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. Today we are doing a solo cast. We did put a shout out on our Insta asking you guys for any questions related to, I guess, birth prep and anything that we're implementing from what we've learnt currently in the podcast into our pregnancies and birth prep. And we got some really awesome questions. So we're going to give our best shot at answering some of them.
Chloe. All right, I might just be the interviewer and interview us.
Yeah, okay. So apologies for those watching. We do have a phone out, but it's because that's where our questions are.
All right. Cute question. What's it like being pregnant together?
Oh, I love it.
It's not the same.
It is. It's actually, I feel like it was a bit of a blessing for me because this baby came as quite a shock to my system. It was nice knowing that I was doing it with you, and also the number of children are the same. So I kind of felt the same. I'm like, there's somebody out there that's as loose as us having 5 kids. But no, it is nice because you're like a couple of days in front of me, and sometimes I forget about some of the things. Like, I remember just this happened the other day. You were like, oh my God, my boob is so sore. And I was like, oh, mine aren't. And then the next week I was like, this boob, I think I have is it possible to get mastitis? Yeah.
Before I've even because it was just colostrum, whatever. And anyway, it was such a little tiny thought, but I was like, oh, I'm good. It's just very comforting almost.
Yeah. And it's also really nice, I think too, because we're both in the situation of we've just started this business together, and now we're both going to be going through the same...
We're evolving it together.
Yeah. So we can, we know how each other are kind of feeling, and even the family dynamics and everything like that.
Very similar.
It's awesome.
I'm not sure about that question. Do you like having your kids at birth?
At the birth?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I've always planned for all the kids to just be at the birth.
Yeah. And
I've never really, I've never needed to get rid of them, so to speak. But last birth I had, my mum was actually there. So that was it was easy because she was kind of just looking after them and tending to their needs and whatnot. So, and at the end, as he was moments away from actually coming out, I called them in, and it was actually just so incredibly beautiful. And but I think it takes a little bit of prep, don't you think? Because they're obviously going to see you in a place where they feel like you're really hurt. Or
I think it really depends on the kid too.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I know that my oldest, she has just been desperate to see a baby come out of me, and we have actually intended to have her at each, at the last 2 anyway. But I think she's pretty adamant on actually catching this baby, so that she's definitely in the room when the baby comes out. The only reason she was 3 when I had Rue, and I hesitated calling her into the room in those final moments because I felt really loud and really primal, and I just didn't want to scare her, and I didn't want her to walk away with any fear around birth. It turns out I actually wasn't making any noise at all, but in my head I was. And then with Poet's birth, she fully intended on being there. I mean, she's in our birth film and everything, but it was such a long labour. I mean, it went over 26 hours, and then the kids were in bed, and my labour switched on once everyone was asleep. But I didn't even realise, I went into a bit of a flighty mode that I didn't even realise that I was going through transition and going through that. And so nearly everyone missed the birth of Poet because I was just in such a weird twilighty space that I didn't even really recognise what was happening within myself. So I think this time round we will try and have everyone's kind of older, and I think more mature, they can handle it. So
we actually just got gifted a beautiful book from one of our guests called Birth is Magic, and it's really good.
It's
and
good prep.
really sweet prep. And I know there's a couple of books, but this one particularly, it's quite raw, and it goes through like there's pictures of like blood and mum screaming in a way that's like not painful or scary or anything like that, and it kind of just paints this really beautiful, it's really rooted in home birth, so I kind of feel like it's really fitting. But we often I know when the kids were younger we would do like mummy's gonna make noises like a big lion, like rah, or be like rah. And so it's kind of like prepping them a little bit. But I
think it is also dependent on the kid. Whereas like
100%.
Willow and Rue have been, you know, at Poets, they were like so into it and so into the placenta and everything. And then Humphrey, my second, was quite reserved and sitting back. So I leave it up to them. They can come in, they can be there. They don't have to be. But ultimately, once baby's out, everyone's in the room so that we can all feed off that beautiful oxytocin high.
Love that. Our approaches to diet in pregnancy.
Oh, do you want to take away?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, this might sound unusual, but I feel like I don't really change a whole lot. I just try and kind of
nourish.
Yeah, like just be more mindful, I guess, like of skipping meals or, like really making sure I'm eating enough.
Yeah.
And of the right foods and things like that. But I used to be really into supplementing and all that stuff, but I do the very bare minimum now and just try to eat lots of food and do things like maybe I'll do like cod liver oil this last trimester, the last bit, and I do it sporadically when I feel like when you're asking for it. I feel like this is, and I'm just going to sidetrack a little bit here. I feel like when you just take the pregnancy and you don't overcomplicate it and you don't get all the checkups and the antenatal care, you've actually got a moment to be like, oh, this is what my body needs.
Yes.
Like, hey, actually I'm feeling this, or like, I know what I need. I felt that a lot this pregnancy. So yeah, I think just, making sure I'm eating enough, lots of protein, and just, not too much like spiking blood glucose and all that, just keeping things nice and
mellow,
balanced. Yeah.
I'm a bit different because I live off that crust diet when I'm not pregnant, like the kids' leftovers diet. So when I am pregnant, I do try and make a little bit more of a conscious effort to make sure that, not as much takeout, definitely, but wherever we go is organic options, and try and really tune into what my body's needing and how I'm feeling before and after food. I've had a couple of little microbiome issues this pregnancy, which has influenced my eating somewhat. But a couple of things that I do throughout all my pregnancies is down nettle leaf infusion, which is...
Every guest that's been on our podcast knows about that lately.
Yep. I'm trying to feed it to you. You're like, ugh. But
I love a herbal infusion, but there's something about nettle that just like I can have a cup of it and I'm like, okay, next.
It's so strong. But also in my first trimester when I'm feeling sick, I find it's like that cold nettle leaf infusion.
It actually does work a dream.
Oh, it's so good. And then a couple of other just little things that I'll add. Mushrooms, obviously. A bit of reishi, a bit of chaga. Lion's mane during this podcast. What else? Fulvic minerals. I've been on that this pregnancy just because I felt that I wasn't very prepared for pregnancy. So I just wanted to up my mineral intake as much as possible. And then cod liver as well, which actually was a bit of a lifesaver during that first trimester too. So, and magnesium at the moment because I'm getting lots of night cramps, which has been fun in my legs, not in my belly, which is a usual one for me.
I'm sure if I was actually gave that question more thought, I could probably give some people some really good advice. But I don't know. I feel like the more I know and the more I am pregnant, there's so many other things that I focus on.
Yeah.
And it kind of overrides nutrition as a whole.
Yeah.
And if you've listened to this podcast, you know that it's probably not on my...
Your baseline is pretty good, solid nutrition though. Yeah.
Okay, let's get a little controversial. Someone said, this might be controversial. It's not. Pregnant with first and navigating what vaccines are necessary.
None.
Next question. No.
I really sympathise with that because I hadn't done any research and didn't really know anything about vaccines when we had our first, and that was a really contentious topic for me and my husband, especially coming out of that university culture and really truly believing that people who don't vaccinate their children just want them to die. I've done a 180 on that and now believe the opposite. No, but I do feel that it is something that you want to look into. And there are some really beautiful documentaries that I watched. In Trace Amounts was a really good one, and Vaxxed, which really goes in deep into the history of vaccines and the pharmaceutical companies. And I think there's another one that's come out 1986, which was when I think that one. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Robert Kennedy Jr. is in that one. And it goes more into when they removed liability from the pharmaceutical companies creating vaccines, and that's now propagated a very big industry behind mandates and what is required for children, and it doesn't really align with what is medically necessary. So there's a lot of information out there.
There's probably too much, and there's a lot of conflicting too. I find this a really difficult thing. I thankfully was on the other side before I had the kids, so I'm very lucky. But I think that if you don't know and you've got a bad feeling, there's no harm in delaying it. You can't take it back once you've done it.
Yeah.
But you can always decide if you're feeling the pull to do it, just go do it then, and that's your decision and that's what you get to make.
Absolutely.
But for me, I really just learnt about what I was afraid of and which things we're afraid of, which was whooping cough, and we've talked about this before. And so I just learnt about what that was and what it looks like and how to treat it from a different lens. And Dr. Susan Humphreys was a great reference. She has an incredible protocol for when a baby gets, or an adult or any of your children get it. So it's actually really just valuable to have, to know.
Yeah. And if you want to look into Steiner's philosophies around whooping cough and a couple of the other childhood illnesses, there are actually a lot of benefits to children having them at particular ages. You can get them through it,
yeah. And then also at the start, because we lived a very unusual lifestyle, getting on a plane at 5 weeks, 6 weeks postpartum with a newborn was our norm. I felt quite vulnerable in my decision making. So I actually decided to do homeopathic vaccinations. I got them, and I think I probably administered for 3 weeks before realizing this is fucking rubbish. I don't need this. I'm feeling very confident, but I felt like it was a good bridge.
Yes.
Okay, and there's a lot of parents out there I'm just not feeling like this is right. Something feels off, but they need to make a decision because they're feeling the pressure, or they're feeling neglectful, or they're feeling like they don't want to make, they don't want a sick baby.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that's
when we do
an
have
incredible bridge.
We have a brilliant episode coming out probably shortly after this one with Melissa Kupsch, and she goes into homeopathic prophylaxis and reasons why to go down that road rather than vaccination. So listen to that too. That'll give you a bit more information. But yeah, I think we listed off a good few things to have a look at. Yeah.
I'm going to just say both of these questions in one because I feel like it's a similar answer for me, and then you can expand.
Okay.
First one, techniques you've used during birth, and second, any pregnancy books that you recommend. I kind of feel like these are similar in the sense that outsourcing what you innately know can sometimes be detrimental, but can be helpful if it's the right type of information at the same time, if that makes sense. So books like, What Your Body may do or something like from a physiological or biological standpoint may be helpful, or more like psychological stuff may be helpful. Like I'm thinking Yolanda's book, the Portal one, how it's more like addressing the stories that you're, attaching yourself to and the drama and, like complicating it psychologically for yourself and, taking away from like you have the innate ability and knowledge within you to actually birth your baby. I feel like sometimes the more information, the more courses, even hypnobirthing sometimes, maybe not hypnobirthing as much, I feel like that's quite helpful for people these days.
Yeah.
That can just kind of take you away and from it. But if you come from a really conditioned state of mind where you're like really fearful of birth, then
it's good to have a look.
I had a couple of books that I read with the Rhea Dempsey one. I'm so sorry, Rhea. I just completely lost
Birth with Confidence.
And Beyond the Birth Plan.
Yeah.
And obviously Yolanda's book, The Portal.
Jane Hardwick Collins has 10 Moons, which is a really beautiful read. And then also anything Ina May Gaskin is really beautiful. Just bringing it back to physiological birth and trusting the body and the body's innate wisdom to do things like wee, poo, digest, push a human out. So it's
I do think breathing can be helpful in a way because it's not removing pain or anything, but it's just kind of like a means to ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt that it was helpful in ways. But I didn't do anything.
It's not like a
specifically.
Technique.
It was something that I'd learnt prior in Vipassana and years of that world. But do I think it's necessary? Probably not. I think you're probably just going to do it anyway. And
I feel like techniques in terms of techniques in the birth space,
it's actually just giving yourself permission to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and if you the more you can just tap into your body, you'll move exactly the way you need to move. So
probably not have someone there guiding you.
Yeah, not listening to other people guiding you. But if you're feeling like, I think in some instances I've felt stuck or I felt like this need to change where I'm at or what I'm doing, and that has ended up being the exact thing that my body's needed because I haven't had anyone telling me otherwise or telling you to push, like babies just come out. So I think the best thing, I mean, I don't know, my opinion has definitely changed throughout pregnancies, but I think reading the books more than anything just drops you into your body a bit and drops you into that birth space and kind of tunes out all the other stuff that you kind of need to get rid of coming into that zone. And then when you go into birth, just give yourself permission to do what feels right and move the way that feels completely necessary, and then have a deep, deep trust in the process.
Yeah, so that's a good segue to the next question, which is how do you block out the noise?
I'm guessing the noise is like other people putting opinions
and traumas and projections
and stories.
This has been very relevant to us with this podcast.
Yes, yeah.
And I know earlier on I was like struggling because I felt really racy. I was like in the air, I was in the sky. I'd like finish recording a podcast with like a birth story or even like any of the episodes with, whoever we've spoken to in regards to birth, and I'd leave and I'm like, oh my God, I just have no clarity on, like I can't get a grip on where I'm at, what I want, like where am I going with this? And I just felt so polluted, and I was like, I can't talk about birth anymore, or I don't want to hear people's stories.
Too much influence.
It's just too much, and it was too much for me to get a grip and have the clarity that I needed to kind of keep guiding me in this direction.
Yeah.
And so I think we did take a little break over December, January, and I was like, it was totally different. And I mean, I guess like you're the only one that's going to birth your baby, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it actually doesn't really matter what.
And I think if you can approach anyone, because I've definitely had a few experiences, even in this pregnancy, where even like people in the health world are like, oh, good thing you don't have any expectations. So if you end up with a C-section, you won't be disappointed. And I was like, that's really interesting. And like that would, I think at the start of this pregnancy would have seized me up a little bit and I would have taken it on board. But now I'm like, that's interesting that you have that story, and I'm really sad for you that you do. And I can kind of listen to it without it penetrating, which I don't know what happened that I've been able to do that, because I feel
It
like
might have-
everything was penetrating
I feel like
at the
for me,
start.
Yolanda's conversation was pretty, like there was just a couple of seeds planted for me about like the drama and the stories.
Yeah.
And I really like sat with that. And I had a couple of realizations where I was like, I'm actually telling myself a lot of stories as well.
Yeah.
And then other people's stories, and women particularly love to dramatize everything in their lives. And birth happens to be like a really big thing that women love to dramatize and talk about and inflate and just like, so I feel like reducing that exposure is helpful.
But then also, I guess if someone does just off the cuff say something and you're like, oh shit, that's like an opinion that I didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Being able to be like, okay, but that is actually just all you. Like that's all your story, and being strong in and grounded in what you know to be true for you and your I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Does everyone else hear what I'm saying? Apologies.
Maybe. We'll see. Okay, next question, and two of the same vibe. We'll answer it together. Don't want the system but also need support in some form. First pregnancy here. Oh, sorry, I think I'm reading this backwards. I'll start again. First pregnancy here, struggling to find alternative support other than the system. I don't want the system, but I also want support in some form. Yeah.
We're not experts here. If you can't find any support other than the system, but you want support, like you can use the system to support you in whatever way you need it, which I've done in the past.
You just have to be a badass.
Yeah, and you
and
just
know
have to
what
be
you
really
want and
strong
firm.
about your no's. I mean, for instance, I've gone through the system through my pregnancies, or past pregnancies, and done scans and blood work and all of that. And I've been able to then take that information, and that's all the support I need to then birth my babies at home and be happy and fine with that. And then, call up an ambulance and they come tick everything off and, and you can use the system that way. If you're feeling strong and grounded enough to do so. I mean, there's also a lot of online support.
Yeah, I was just going to say, people like Michelle Palacia and other people who are incredibly helpful for many women. They have a virtual support system. Yeah. But I think also just sometimes you don't need to give all the details of your intended plan. And pardon me, I've got the hiccups. And I feel like that can be helpful in just non-complicating it and keeping it to yourself in a way that's obviously feels good for you.
Yeah.
But I think support is super helpful from your friends as well. Like the women around you, like calling in that support and letting them know what you're hoping for, especially after the baby's born, and those kind of weeks leading up to the end where I feel like that's when your mind can start playing with you a little bit and kind of you think about things because it's the time is approaching and birth is near, and you kind of like, I think that's when little cracks can start to form. And I feel like that sometimes you just, I mean, I've had people attend my births and sometimes that's what I pay them for. Like, I've just got this wild thought. It's midnight. Could you just like sit with me with this?
Yeah. And I think if you're trying to find, I guess, support that's more, I guess, what we share on this podcast, there are Facebook groups, free birthing Facebook groups and that kind of thing to, I guess, help you get clarity on aches and pains or any kind of questions that you want to ask if you can't find that in the physical where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why sometimes having a birth doula person who is educated can be helpful, I guess, because if suddenly you've heard a story about like breech birth ending in a C-section, you're like, holy shit, am I going to, even the other night it rattled me when we were watching Born at Home and that baby had to be helped out. I was like, oh my God, I do not want that. But for a second, I'm like, oh my God, breech birth, not on my radar. Never had it, never thought about it. What if? And sometimes it's just like you need to just be able to, if you don't have the ability to just be like, calm yourself, check yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like having a person on the other line, it's like, you're good, babe, which is what all my birth workers have always. I'm like, you're good, you're good, you're good.
There are a number of birth workers around. If you are listening to this and it's not been helpful, sing out. We can send you some birth workers who do work online and can help you out. Yeah.
All right. Have you been having any treatments leading up to birth?
I saw an acupuncturist one time. No, I get really bad restless legs, so I have gone to see a traditional Chinese medical practitioner. He gave me some acupuncture, and that night I actually had one of the better sleeps I've had in the last couple of months. But apart from that, I will go and see a physio purely because I do feel like I need some support in my pelvic area after not really recovering very well from Poet's birth. And I will also probably do a little bit more body work towards the end, just because I am really prepping for postpartum.
Your postpartum does body work, doesn't she?
My postpartum does, doula does do body work, which I'm really excited for, but I'll be getting like some body work in the lead up to birth as well, just because I really want to be, I really want to look after my body this time, which has never been a priority to me. And for multiple reasons, but I just, I did end up with a few health complications post Poet, just being depleted and stressed and having not done any proper postpartum care. So that's really all my birth prep has been postpartum care this time, which I'm feeling good about.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What have I been doing?
Body work. You've done some acupuncture.
Yeah, I started acupuncture last week actually, which was lovely.
I hate acupuncture. Hey, I just cry. Yeah. As soon as they stick the needles in, I'm just like,
oh my God, that's hilarious.
Oh, it's so bad. But then I always have like really awesome night's sleep after, and it actually fixes whatever I've gone in for, but I'm so resistant to it.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening to this and you know what's up, hit me up.
What will you do different to other births?
I've put a lot of pressure on my births where, in the lead up to, I'm listening to like hypnobirthing soundtracks and I've done heaps of meditation, and this time I'm actually just fully like okay with however. Yeah, I'm not like, I think that's the only thing that I'm doing different. Like I just really fully trust myself and my body and this baby, and I don't feel like I need to do anything. Like I'm just like, we're just going to be going along.
Don't you feel like there's a whole collective vibe at the moment that's similar to this? I feel like everyone is just no fuss. If these pregnancies lately where everyone's just like, pardon me, I've been drinking so much sparkling water and I feel like I'm just slowly drowning in myself. Like everyone seems to be saying the same thing. Like this pregnancy has been really easeful. It's no fuss. No one's engaging in antenatal care. No one's checking in, checking up, no scanning, no...
I don't feel too dogmatic about that either.
No, I don't feel like it's a thing.
If anything felt wrong at any stage, 100%. I'd just walk into a hospital and be like, wait, check this shit. Like I'm not... There's no real stress or pressure there. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems to be... This has been my least worrisome, stressful... I mean, none of my pregnancies have been overly like... fanatic or anything, just no worries or like hyper like fears and stuff. But this has just been something that this pregnancy is just happening to me. Life is going on and it's something that's
with you.
And I'm not
to you,
I'm not
but
just
with you.
diminishing it or anything. It's just happening as life happens. And I feel like not having an appointment booked in for a check in or not having to like, it's like this anticipation. Sometimes it's creates this unnecessary worry or like, is my baby okay? And the one time that I actually had a concern where this was actually before Christmas, before we were flying to Perth, I was like, oh, it's unusual that I haven't really felt a lot of movement. Like, I don't know, is this okay? Like, is my baby okay? Like, should I just go and get a scan? It's like a little bit after 20 weeks, but I could probably still do it. Like, and then as soon as I got to Perth and I was like laying around and we're at the beach and I just started, like the baby just started moving so much. I was like, there it is. Probably just needed to check in. Probably just needed to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I've never been so bloody busy with doing this podcast and whatever. But nothing's really differently.
It's been no fuss, hasn't it?
Yeah. I haven't done anything differently apart from just not engaging in any antenatal care. Like with Banjo, I only did like one scan. Yeah. But this time I've just been like totally not called to do any checking in with the baby other than just like, I feel you. You're there. Yeah. You're growing clearly.
Yeah.
I feel good. No signs of needing to be. Yeah. And like you said, if I feel like something's off, I'm not going to hesitate to.
No, seek.
Yeah. I don't need the label of wild pregnancy, free birthing woman. I don't need that at all. That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah. I'm not holding that as a badge of honour either.
What else have we got? Fifth baby here also, third home birth, any feelings of uncertainty with how body is feeling, uterus during and recovery, no scans here either, but wondering if I should have one. Well,
it's something that you need to check in with yourself, really.
It's not a question, an outward question. I think that's a should I get one? Why should I get one? What's coming up? Like, is there a fear? Like, is it mine? Is it real?
Yeah, would a scan help your situation?
What if something was not okay? Like, what would you? It's a lot to get.
Yeah, I think. Look, if it's your fifth as well, you might be in the same boat as us. And I was feeling quite depleted and obviously not recovered fully from my fourth pregnancy. So there was a few things that I definitely wanted to address, and I did see a physiotherapist. I mean, I haven't done any scans for that, but I just haven't felt like I needed to. It's more, I think more for me, it's just being really prepping my body so that I've kind of ticked off everything I feel that could help and support a full recovery after this pregnancy. So, yeah. And then I guess it's just feeling into what you think. I mean, fifth time round, you should have a good indication of how your body's feeling and if it is more depleted and what it would need in that respect. But sing out if you want to have more of a conversation. We're very open to it.
More about free birth and what you envision for it. I feel like we kind of just went there a little bit, but
Baby will come out and we'll move on. Continue. Next question.
Yeah, although this might be helpful actually if people feel wrapped up in the need to hold the badge of free birth honour, and because that's big right now. I know I've spoken to a lot of women and they're like, I feel pressured by my group of girlfriends, or like, like I've had conversations where women are like, I feel it's really frustrating that if I don't free birth and I have a doula or I have someone that means that I'm being judged, and it means that, oh, you mustn't trust your baby, or you mustn't trust your body, or you mustn't, like, I just want to call that out because I think that's fucking stupid, and I think it's really damaging for women. And I just think that, like, women have birthed with other women for a long, long time before it was, like, medicalized and industrialized. And
we're also coming from like a society where I know 100% I haven't been living in circadian rhythm my whole entire life, and I've not grown up with this innate trust in my body, and I've not grown up with this innate trust in my own intuition. It's been stamped out and all the things. So I think when it comes to free birthing, it's great if in the moment it feels right, but I also consider myself like, okay, have I done the work? Do I know what everything, like, can I see a red flag in my own body when it when it comes up. And those kind of things, I think, like help you to understand you and where you're at. And like, I don't know, like it doesn't mean that you don't trust your body or trust your baby, but we all have these different backgrounds and
I think it's okay to iron out who you really are. And this would be the prep for me for free birth is who are you?
Yeah.
What do you really want?
Yeah.
Do you feel safe? Are you holding on to anything that's going to stop you from, or are you getting in the way of yourself? And for me, I remember holding on to these stories about, and I told you about this, about my old birth keeper. She's not a midwife anymore. I don't know what she is. Wise woman, she calls herself. And I was like holding on to these stories and I was like, oh, fuck this. Well, this wouldn't have happened if maybe I just didn't have anybody there. And like, I was really like in my head, and I ended up inviting her for coffee and I was like, listen, like, you know, what's going on here? What happened there? What's this? And realized like just dissolved all that shit for myself. And then, so like for me, my current, where I'm at is that if I want her there, I'm going to call her on the day or the day before or whenever I want.
Yeah.
And then if I want her to come after, then I'm going to call her and she's going to come after and she'll deflate my birth pool and talk to Brenton and play with my kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I got through all of that, I realized like it can look however you want it to look.
Yeah.
And it's not like you go to hospital, you have a hospital birth, or you have a private midwife and they come to you. You can actually grow enough and figure out enough for yourself that you can request whatever you want for yourself and what feels good for you. It's not like
I think too,
no one's forcing you to do anything.
Exactly. And I think too, something that was really beautiful in our chat with Melanie was considering the child as well. And some, you know, not all babies want to be free birthed. So like if you end up in a situation where you're like there's this urge to have a wise woman present or to have a midwife at some point in your pregnancy or to go into the hospital at any stage or a birth center or whatever, do it. Like it's, you know, if you're listening to your intuition, I think that's the most important part. So, so long as you're discerning from like fear and intuition and but I think the most important part for any woman is that they feel held and safe and respected. And then choosing the environment that is going to hold that for you
and being firm with it.
Best.
Because no one else, and I think this is like something Brenton called me out on. He's like, if you don't say that, like what you want, or you didn't say it, is that somebody else's fault or is that your fault?
Yeah.
And I was like, when you're right. But it was kind of like the catalyst for me figuring out some of my shit with the stories that I was holding on to. But anyway, I could probably keep on going there, but I'm not going to. And we'll finish this off on a fun, less birthy related, I suppose.
Oh, well, can I bring up one question I think that I didn't end up copying? Circumcision. How do you feel about it?
I just don't understand. Oh, yeah, that was a question and I don't think I got to that.
I know.
It's weird for me. I don't understand why you'd cut off a piece of skin that's perfectly designed to cover another piece of your body part for extended periods of time during the day and for your life. It just is weird.
So I have obviously a little bit more to say on the circumcision front, coming from a Jewish background. But I felt deeply, even though there was encouragement there for me to circumcise my children. I felt quite strongly about not doing that, especially having done the research that I did on vaccines and any other kind of intervention. I watched a documentary on circumcision, which was brilliant. And I actually believe, what's her name? Gloria, that midwife that's been deregistered in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Gloria, I forget her last name. I'm so sorry, Gloria. But she has done some fantastic work on circumcision. And I think she was in that documentary. And yeah, it is, I'm going to call it what it is. It's genital mutilation, and we wouldn't do it to our girls. So I don't believe we should be doing it to our boys. And I think that I've heard there are some medical reasons to do it, but preventative, I would say absolutely not. And yeah, I feel like our men should, if we can keep our men's manhood intact, then we might be able to keep a little bit more about them intact too.
Love that. Totally agree. It's weird. Just weird. That's all I've got to say. The last thing was, what are our essentials? I'm assuming for birth or postpartum.
Yeah, birth. I guess an extra pair of hands, because I generally push my babies out over the tiles. So, and my goal, like the one thing that I would love to do, this, like just a dream, is catch my baby. I just want to catch my baby. But also, I've always, like, for the last 3 births, I've had to brace on something, and I've been over tiles, so I have needed an extra pair of hands.
Interesting.
But yeah, and towels, lots of bad towels that you can just throw straight to the bin once you use them.
That's very sustainable of you.
They're my birth necessities, I think.
You know what? I actually really got into like the postpartum maternity like nappies last year.
I've never used them.
I was always like, it's a hard no for me. But then I actually used them for banjo, and I was like, holy shit, this is like
a game changer.
It's a game changer.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't for long. It was like a couple of days, but
yeah, okay.
like that was so good.
Yeah. I think I just use the Tom pads. They seem like they kind of do the job.
Yeah.
There's like the organic big maternity ones. It's a bit of cushioning. And
I also always have homeopathics for after pains, because fuck me, that's
brutal.
Well, I managed my 4th. I really just had such a hard time on my 2nd and 3rd. 2nd, I just had no idea what after, like no one preps you for after pains. And then the 3rd, it was horrible. I felt like I had a fever. It was so bad. It was so intense. It felt like, it was just full on. And I was like, never again. Yeah. So I prepped kind of every time after that. But homeopathic seemed to do the trick, and just like eating food. Yeah, like just... full rest and all that type of stuff. Oh, yeah,
prep for postpartum. I mean, I've done a lot of prep for postpartum.
You're really prepping. I'm actually so proud of you.
Yeah, so I've employed a doula, and she is amazing for postpartum, who will cook and do body work, which I'm really excited about. We have a nanny that's going to help us out with the kids, and a cleaner. I've gone all out. Postpartum this time, it's nothing I've ever done before, except for we did get for when I had Rue, we got a nanny come help us for a couple of weeks, just so that I could get a couple of hours a day resting, but that wasn't enough, and it definitely isn't what we're getting this time. We're going full hog. So just making sure that I'm really prepped to be able to rest and recover.
And postpartum, you're getting someone to cook for you, clean for you.
Yeah.
You're honouring their resting time and calling out to... I feel like this is a big one, and a lot of people would feel this, like the receiving of help in your postpartum is so difficult. Yeah. It's something that we're definitely working on and becoming more open to, I think, as women and mothers.
I've found that, like, because there's going to be a money exchange here, I'm so much more open to receiving it. It's so weird. This is something I need to work on myself. But it's I feel like just having that money, but really we should be just accepting help from our community.
If you're a friend who has a friend having a baby, just set them a meal train up for them so they don't have to ask for it. Yeah,
or just drop meals. Don't even ask. Don't ask them, because if it's me, I'm always like, no, I'm so okay. Don't worry about it. You do you. Can I cook for you? Like it gets really ridiculous. If you have friends having babies, don't even ask them. Just say, when can I drop off a meal? Or I am dropping off a meal. What do you want? Like, otherwise it's going to be something you don't want.
What about like for the baby?
Prepping for the baby, carrier. That's all you need.
It's pretty much it.
It's a carrier. Yeah. You just so you can, when you need to get up and do stuff, you can just have them with you. And then I do really enjoy either a sheep wool skin, so you can just lay them down on the ground if you can't physically carry, because I know some even I kind of struggle those first few days where like
you kind of don't want to be standing up and walking. Like you just
yeah,
be,
but your abdomen just feels so weak and like your back feels really weak, and then like carrying, I mean, they're only teeny tiny, but sometimes you just need that break every now and then. So yeah, one of those wool sheep things or the bubble clouds, if you want to put them on the couch and don't want them to roll off.
Yeah, I've found them so helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know how good they are like outside of that little newborn thing though.
No.
I think for like...
Oh, Poet loves hers now because I've just brought it back out for this baby.
So she's getting back in.
But she just like, she'll just drag it around with her and then just like lounge on it. Like it's a really good,
I feel like
comfy thing.
After the fact, so I just used one for Rosie and Banjo, but after Banjo, I think, or in that time, I learnt about like, oh, well, you would know now, like midline revolution chat, babies who are like this all the time versus like
stretched out and open,
has like a really big impact.
That's why
on
like
them.
a sheep wool thing
they
on
can,
the
like,
ground
freely move.
Yeah. But like,
but those little
if you want to
clouds,
put them,
it works. Like they go to sleep and they're just like snug, and
But
you can
even,
like leave
like,
them. They don't roll off the beds. And stuff.
that's the thing. Like you can put them on the couch or, you know, and they're not going to roll. That's a big one for me. But if you can just put them on the ground, I mean, you know, we've got a dog and a lot of other kids, so sometimes the ground's not so appropriate. But I think is that everything?
Yeah. Oh,
and a carrier.
And maybe like good maternity, like clothing, bras. I just
whatever I've got. I'm just naked. Oh, I've got an epic robe that I'll be using. Thank you, Artemisian Collective. That is what I will be living in.
I know. It's been so hot to think about putting on a robe right now. And also to think about leaking breast milk everywhere right now while I'm sitting here sweating in this summer humidity. I just feel like I'm going to die.
Those robes just will absorb it. Like I'm going to live in that. I'm going to birth in it. I'm going to live in it. I'm really excited for it. You'll see it a lot. I'll be like doing this with a carrier and my robe on.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right. Well, I think that's all for now. We've got a fair few more, but I think we'll call it a day and do it again in part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon.
All right. Sounds good. We'll speak to you all soon and peace out for now. Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.